Mr. Holtz, you were the chief economist for the Labor Department during the Obama administration. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you are a supporter of the PRO Act. You testified today that it is a crucial reform. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you also testified that anyone who is a bona fide independent contractor will not be affected by the PRO Act. Was that your testimony?
That's right.
So as you're aware, the legal standard for independent contracting that is part of the PRO Act has already been implemented in California under state law, the law known as AB5. It contains the same ABC test. So in reaching your conclusion that anyone who is a bona fide independent contractor will not be affected by the PRO Act, did you speak with the independent contractors who have been affected by AB5 in California?
I did not, but I can look at what the the ABC test actually does. It's a three-pronged test that
I
a
understand.
bona fide contractor really would fit under.
I understand. But my question was whether you spoke with anyone who was affected by AB5 in California as an independent contractor, and your answer was no. Is that right?
That's true.
So I have spoken with many of these folks. I'm from California. And as a matter of fact, shortly after that law went into effect, we compiled a whole book of their stories about how they have been affected by this law. AB5 stories, testimonials of Californians who have lost their livelihoods. And this was just in a few days after the law went into effect. There, you could fill many more volumes by this point. And so since you didn't have the opportunity to speak with those who have been affected in reaching your conclusion that those who are bona fide independent contractors will not be affected by the PRO Act, I thought maybe I'd share with you a few of their stories. For example, here is testimony from Colleen. Colleen says, I am a court reporter in California that does depositions. I do work for many different firms. 2 firms have already notified me that they can no longer give me work. I am the one who supports my family, and I have been doing this work for over 30 years. I'm not sure what to do now. Dr. Sherholtz, does the testimony of Colleen in any way change your conclusion that anyone who is a bona fide independent contractor will not be affected by the PRO Act?
It does not, because one of the things that's core is, does Colleen want to organize? Because that's what will be affected under the PRO Act. What it does is it means that people who are misclassified as independent contractors, so who are not independent contractors, will, the only way it affects them is if they actually want to organize. That's the thing. So if there's people if Colleen wanted to organize, then I could say maybe that would be an impact.
Okay, so here's another person, Esther. She says, I help people who don't speak English communicate with medical providers. I'm a proud senior, independent, and self-sufficient. AB5 leaves me out of work, unprotected, and isolated. It takes away my pride. It was passed without taking people like me into account. Does the testimony of Esther affect your conclusion that anyone who is a bona fide independent contractor will not be affected by the PRO Act?
Not by the PRO Act.
This is from Jody. I worked years to gain my skill as an American Sign Language interpreter. It was my goal since I was 9 years old. After AB5, I lost all 3 of my agencies. The dream I worked for is lost. I can't provide for my family, and thousands of California deaf won't be serviced. Does the testimony of Jody affect your conclusion that anyone who is a bona fide independent contractor will not be affected?
I have not heard anything that what is going on in the PRO Act is going to affect those folks.
The PRO Act contains the same ABC test as AB5, does it not?
Yes, but it doesn't affect like wage and hour law. Like it only affects your status vis-a-vis the NLRA.
This is from John. I am a guest orchestral conductor. Because of this bill, I just lost my first scheduled job with an orchestra. $9,000 that would have been a dent in my student loans or helped pay my insurance or paid for food and shelter is now gone, all because of AB5. Are you still sure that adopting this legal standard for independent contracting on a nationwide basis, either through the PRO Act or the Department of Labor's proposed rule, is not going to affect any bona fide independent contractor?
Again, the PRO Act is the Department of Labor's rule, the proposed rule that they just put out, does not implement the ABC rule. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the PRO Act, which does implement the ABC rule only for the NLRA, and none of the examples that you have given have had anything to do with
Mr. Spear,
labor law.
You've testified as the head of the American Trucking Association about the potential losses of livelihoods from the PRO Act. What were the numbers that you gave?
Well, just on ICs alone, you've got 350,000 drivers operating under that model nationwide, 70,000 in California alone. We're right now short 78,000 drivers. So If you want to continue inflation at 40-year highs, start getting rid of more of our drivers. Guarantee you, you're going to pay double, if not triple, what you're paying at the shelf right now.
And so despite whatever limitations Dr. Sherholtz just tried to tell us, you think that these impacts would be felt as a result?
And you've got a live rulemaking over at the Department of Labor right now that deals with this, so it's not just the PRO Act. This is an all-out assault on a 90-year-old case law-supported business model. Why is that? Why is that? It's because union rates have dropped to half of what they were in 1983. They're struggling for membership. They're struggling for dues. So what better way to change that than change the laws, change the rules so you can channel more people into unions? I don't care if you're a union member or not. You should have the right to belong or not belong. But that doesn't, just because you're struggling to organize doesn't mean you get to change the rules in your favor. These laws have been around for 90 years. NLRA was passed in 35, FLSA 38, relatively unchanged. Why? Because they maintain the balance between employers and employees. This is a concerted effort to change that. And the only reason I can see doing so is to up membership and dues. That's it.
Thank you. I yield
Mr.
back.
Spear,